Okay, there she is. I just told her she's the it girl. It's Elizabeth Rose. Rose? Is that the yes, Rose Quinn. Elizabeth, how you doing?
I'm good. You said I was the it girl, and I said that is a threat. That is terrifying to be.
Well, look, you got okay, so Elizabeth's got a debut novel out. There it is. Follow me. Woo. And I believe that's in production. There's people making a movie out of it. Is this actually happening?
Yes, MGM and Amazon optioned the screenplay. Adele Lim just turned in the script. I believe the president of the studio is reading it right now. I was talking to her producing partner, Naya Kukoff, and they're like full steam ahead. And I'm
Yeah,
just
this feels so much like a movie. This feels like or maybe a little mini series. Is it going to be a little limited series or a movie?
to be a movie. It's going to be a feature. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice way to start a book.
Yes.
Really, that is pretty good. Yeah, because it's published by Thomas and Mercer, which is sort of affiliated with Amazon. So, oh, very cozy. It's good. It's good. It's good. Get it out there. So, Elizabeth, congratulations. Nice speaking to you. The book is going to officially publish in about 6 days, I think, or five or 6 days. Yeah. So, how you feeling? Like, what? This has been a journey, I imagine.
I fake answer. I'm so excited. Real answer. I'm nauseous. I feel really nervous. I
Well,
feel overwhelmed. I feel all the things. All
here,
things.
I have good news for you and bad news for you. When the pub date will be weirdly a non it will be an event and a non-event at the same time. Because it's not like if you're doing theater and and this is the first night. It's
Yeah.
kind of, people will contact you and you'll do stuff like this, but it all happens sort of, I remember when I published
I swear.
my first book, I was told it was out on this X day, and then my sister 3 days before that said, "Hey, I just found your book in my bookstore." So I was like, What are you talking about?" So it's kind of like that.
I love that. Yeah, I have yeah, it comes out April 1st, and my entire April 1st is like booked the whole day.
Good,
Um,
good.
I was like, I'm not taking the day off to sit there and frantically feel confused.
No,
No, no,
no.
no, no, no. Just it's just a two. I'm just living my life.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I thought you meant booked with stuff like this. No, you're going and doing stuff.
Oh yeah, no, my children are having their first swimming lesson. And so I'm just like, that's the day that my children start their swimming lessons.
You,
And that's what that day's about.
you're going to pretend life is normal.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a good idea because, it changes your life and it doesn't change it at all. So it's a kind of a weird thing. But, okay. So let's back up. So this is novel number one published.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let me see. I'm going to try to intuit. I think there's a chance this is your first novel you wrote, but I'm not convinced of that. That's often not the case. Is it the case with you or not?
I feel like in my life, I've started to write several
That
novels. And
doesn't count. That doesn't count.
yeah, no, but this is the first novel
Ah,
I
you see, I kind of felt that there was something firstish about this. Um,
hope in a good way and not in a like,
well, no, there's a lot of nice things I got to say about this book, which I will in a moment. But okay, so but you majored in English, uh, and family therapy, family.
yes, I
Okay,
have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy,
and you're married.
and I'm married.
So, so when you're getting into a discussion with your husband, you say, "Hey, look, I'm the professional here. Just listen to what I have to say."
I try not to do that because that does not work for him.
No,
That
no.
is not the posturing that makes us a team. It makes us adversaries, and then we both dig in. And so,
Yeah.
no, but I do try to highlight all the things that I know create a healthy marriage that we do well. And so I try to give a
Good for
lot
you.
of that positive feedback of like, this is something we did recently that was really good. And I actually have the clinical reason to back up
Oh
everything.
God. Okay, you too. Yeah, my wife, I'm a writing coach. It's one of the things I coach people. I'm sort of like a life coach for writers. My wife's a writer. I can't coach her. She don't want to hear it. She don't want, so it doesn't happen. But okay, so you all right, so you get that degree, you get that master's,
Mhm.
but but you were screenwriting too was sort of something you started then moving towards.
Well, okay, so we have a little bit backwards. I was working and living in Los Angeles as a screenwriter. I was writing on sitcoms and on a billion pilots that didn't get picked up and getting
When
stuck.
was this?
This is 2008 to 2023. I was doing
Oh, oh. All right, so you were toiling away. You were doing it. You moved out to LA. You were because I did that a little bit, but I
Mhm.
quickly left. But you stuck it out. You were doing the thing,
Yes.
and you're getting some work. Like
Yeah.
things are happening.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm in
right?
the WGA. I'm, working on sets. I'm doing the things. And I have my first child and I'm kind of like taking a step back.
Oh,
I can like be taking care of my kid. And it kind of was like pilot
right.
season was right after I had my child. So I was like, oh, I'm not really going to have time to like get a show organized. And I did lots of development stuff and all those things. And then COVID hit a year after I had my first kid.
Another COVID book.
Yes. And so in COVID, this is very much like wow. My husband and I sat down, we made a list, like what are we doing? Like what do we want from our
Right.
lives? And we could have everything on the list if we left Los Angeles.
Wow.
And
Wow.
the only reason why we're staying in LA, I mean, my husband's a Los Angeles native and like grew up off of Pico, and I'm a California girl. I'm from
Yeah.
Berkeley. So like that wasn't a small ask, but it was like
Yeah.
if we leave LA, we can have all these other things. Am I as committed to this screenwriter version of writing that I think I am? Maybe I'm not. Maybe my goals have changed. And so it was August of 2020 that I went back to grad school in the pandemic in an apartment with a 1-year-old.
Whoa. Jesus.
Yeah, it was a great idea and a terrible idea, like simultaneously. So I was like, okay, I'm out. I've gotten out of the cult. I'm gonna, we're gonna move eventually when the pandemic's over. I'm gonna start this other career working as a psychotherapist. Like we've just got to make a change. And then it was kind of maybe about a year and a half into that, I was like, this book kind of all these different things that I had been kind of thinking about for many decades, like these little like a little idea here and a little idea, they kind of coalesced into this. And I was like, you know what? Screenwriting, clearly I'm jinxed. And I was like, but I really want to write this story and I'm gonna
Oh,
make it a novel and see what happens.
that is really cool. Now, so you went from the screenwriting to fiction, different animal,
Yes.
though you learned a lot in screenwriting, I have no doubt. This
Yes.
book has great pace to it. I also said for our listeners, this is I mean, I guess where are they putting it in suspense or mystery? Where are they slotting it?
Thriller, but
Thriller.
they're also
Okay, that's fair. But I will
Mhm.
say to our listeners, this has a different giddy app than I'm not a thriller reader, except that I read them all the time because of what I do. And it's okay, but this has a sense of humor to it,
Mhm.
and a voice that's very distinct that is not always the case with thriller writers. I gotta say, I love you people, great people, but there is a kind of it's the people's life are in danger, and so I think there's a to gravitate towards a kind of seriousness.
Mhm.
But you let this have a sense of humor to it, which I clearly is natural to you, and I thought it really worked. I thought it gave it a different feel to it than a lot of the thrillers and mysteries I've read.
I'm so glad because, yeah, I really was coming from the universe of, yeah, if you watch, Stepford Wives, like the original, or you read the original novel, it's like the satire in there, it's funny. Like before Get Out becomes a horror show,
Right.
it's so funny. Like Jordan Peele loves to pull that humor
Yes.
in. And for me, I feel like in a genre like thriller or horror, which this definitely kind of sits in, you can take it further if it's also funny. And if it's funny, you can take the horror further. Like kind of melding these genres for me felt like everything could be kind of more heightened.
Hmm.
And it's been funny because I think the people who have not really enjoyed the book have been like, it's not realistic. And I'm like, You're right.
Oh, for
It's
God's sakes. First of all, it's a thriller. And in general, I would say the thriller writers try to be realistic, but they're not. And because they have to jack it up in order to make it. So come on, relax, people.
like that way. I agree. No, but so it definitely, I didn't think about it. I didn't realize how kind of different it was to combine these genres because I guess coming from the world of screenwriting, to me, they felt like such natural
Sure.
bedfellows. And now that I'm in a totally different world of publishing, people are like, "Whoa, what are you doing with all these
Uh,
genres?"
that's so funny.
Right?
Well, I also think, and this I think is really important and important for our listeners, many of whom are writers. Elizabeth
Yes.
did something natural to her, I would say. Again, I mean, it was a funny thing. So I just met you. but I got your headshot, and I was like, this book feels like that woman's headshot. And I met you, and I was like, yeah, your voice comes through, which I think is so important because you're never going to be better than you at your most natural. I just think creatively that's where our genius lies. And so I think good for you. Just tell it the way you tell stories.
Yes, thank you. I'm
And
glad that.
so all right. So this book, I mean, so the premise is really cool and very of the moment in certain ways. So I'll let you give the premise, and then I have a couple comments about it, which I would love to share with you.
Okay, so the premise is basically a woman named Kiara is really struggling after becoming a mother, and she gets invited to an influencer kind of style weekend thing. And she's not really that into the viral Instagram of it all, but she's excited to kind of meet other moms and have an experience that feels connective because right now she feels very isolated and she never comes home. And her lovely but less shiny fraternal twin sister, Adrian, can't get past it. She becomes kind of obsessed and frustrated that the police aren't doing enough, that Kiara's husband has kind of gotten so swallowed up by grief that he's also pretty useless. And so Adrian, who has no children, does not want children, is basically living an analog life of somebody who's got like some addiction issues, says, I'm
Right.
going to go to the last place that she was seen alive and see what I can figure out. And so she kind of goes into
The den, the
the den,
den of snakes.
a subculture that she it was necessary for me to write as her being an outsider because there's so much in there that I really wanted to be like, this is bonkers. And so,
Right, but see, it's a great premise in certain ways because it's a world that most of us aren't going to, you know,
mhm,
but everyone, it's a weird thing today. You have kids, so I don't know what it's going to be when they're old enough, but I know that, like, career-wise, if they go to like high school students, like one of the most popular careers they'll give is influencer, which is just kind of gross to me, I got to admit. But okay, whatever. That's the world we live in. And so a lot of people dream of it, uh, but they don't know anything about that, don't probably know that much about it. So you kind of give us a nice glimpse into it. And, I think secretly we kind of want to think they're all a-holes, although who knows? Who knows? I don't actually know.
yeah.
So you did, and so it's a great premise, and it's very sort of, like I said, of the moment, but it's different, it's fun, and you do a great job with that. But one of the things that struck me, and is one of the reasons I was so interested in the book, was it's at the beginning. You need to set up. I can't remember the character's name. You gave her name. I just forgot it. Uh,
Kiara or
Kiara.
Adrian.
Right. So you have to set up that Kiara is not happy. I mean, she loves being a mom, and you did this beautiful job of setting up. I'm not a mom, but I raised two kids. My wife really and we did it in tandem, and it is beautiful and exhausting and
Yeah.
boring and stressful
Yes.
and tedious
Yes.
and love. I mean, it's all these things. And you did such a good job of, because it was really important we understood why she really wanted this. And you were so convincing. And I thought, okay, I know this is a suspense novel, but she is doing such a good job. This could be mom lit. This could be a women's fiction if the way you handled it so carefully. So it added a different level of depth to it that might not have been in the average. Well, you really let yourself sink into it. And so I appreciate it. I thought that was some really good work on your part, that you didn't just gloss over it to get to the action. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I have to actually credit my lovely, my agent and my editors. They were very much like, you have these little slices of this. We need to know more of it. And I think for me, coming from a background of screenwriting, it's
Get
always
to
just
it. Yeah.
in every scene, get there late and leave early, right?
Right.
Is the,
Right.
the,
Right.
the maxim. And so it was a very different speed for me at first to find. And then once I did, it felt like, oh, this was all here in my head. And I'm glad that somebody
Yeah.
said it should be on the page.
Yes. Well, it's funny that you say that because I remember I went from writing theater to writing
Oh,
screenplays.
wowie.
And so in theater, what have you got? People talking. That's all you've got. And
Yes.
so I had to learn to pull out all this dialogue because you could do it all in just one thing. So, but then I interviewed a guy, I can't remember his name, but he went from writing television and screenplays to fiction. And he liked the transition. And he was astonished when his publisher said, hey, we could use another 20,000 words because it would be fatter on the shelf that way. And he's like, what? They said, oh, you'll find it. Can you imagine a producer ever say, can you just add another 15 or 20 minutes to this script?
I when I first sent it to my lovely friend Alana, I said, okay, I wrote this novel. Like, I'd love for you to read it before I sent it to my agent. And she wrote back and said very, very nice things about all the things she liked. And then she just goes, Hemingway is begging you for an adverb, though. And I was, oh, she's like, yeah, like, can we get an adjective? Can we
Yeah.
get sentences that are like longer than like a bullet point? And I was like, okay, copy, 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 copy.
It's so hard, man, because I remember I came to LA and somehow I got a hold of the script to that stupid stripper movie. What was it called? No, Fatal Attraction. That's what it was. I somehow I got a hold of the and of course I came for at that point I'd been writing prose for years and I was all into prose and I was like, the prose in this screenplay stinks. And it was and I was like, oh wait a minute, I don't think that matters. And so it's a you have to suddenly adjust that the reader is not some you know, producer sitting there saying, get me to the story, but every sentence now matters. Every sentence matters.
Yes, I kind of don't let myself think about that too much.
Because then you fret over it.
Yeah, and I think it will get me further away from my voice if I,
Yeah.
like I do go back through and like adjust things and I have a very particular way that I want things to sound and like
Yep.
there's a lot of that. Like I'm not, just over here like just typing, you know, nouns. Maybe my writing will change as I continue to go forward, but for this book in particular, I was like, I just want speed, and I felt
Oh,
really
absolutely. Yeah.
just flying through stuff, and that felt great, and it felt in line with the genre. I mean, I didn't write a fiction book that's like literature. I didn't do that, and I didn't do
Right.
a romance where everything's about like hair through like. Um, I picked something that I felt like would be very much kind of in line with the pace that I feel good at, which is
Absolutely. Well, it had a great pace to it. And so did you like it? Did you like doing it? I mean, it's a whole different animal than because with screenplays, you get notes and notes and notes and notes and notes and notes and notes, right? But for novels, I mean, I know you had an agent but really it's you mostly for a long time, right?
I mean, there were so many things about it that were, I mean, first of all, I just felt like I was flying. Like I just was like, I can go as fast as I want. I can
Yeah.
go, I don't have to think about production value.
You're right.
How many pictures this is. I don't have to be like, oh my God, that's 3 stunts. We can't have a stunt coordinator for that many days. Like I don't have to think any of that stuff. That was great. I loved that. Um, I loved being able to spend much more time like in my character's interior world, which is something that's very hard to do in a
hmm
screenplay unless
hmm
it's over. Um, so that felt really wonderful. I was very fortunate. I worked with my editor and my development editor, who are both brilliant. And when they gave me notes on the first draft, I added 30,000 words in 6 weeks
Oh,
because they were like, we just need more. And it
yeah.
felt great though, because I could tell, and this is again about also their skill, they were making my book a better version of my book, as opposed
Yeah.
to I'm a producer and I kind of want to like get my fingerprints all over this, which sometimes has
Yeah.
happened. And so that felt really great to get notes that felt incredibly constructive. Um, so all of that was really exciting. The problem is now, as I'm staring down at Pub Date, when something doesn't work on the screen, you share the blame with like 500 people because like everybody had to make this thing together, right? Oh, if this thing flops, it's just on me. And that is I was like, oh, wow, really on
Yeah,
the
the reviews are all on you. Here's my advice to you. I know you won't take it, but I'm going to give you my advice. Don't read any reviews of it. I know you will, but don't.
I have not read any reviews. My husband is very kind and he will send me like a
Good ones.
screen grab of a good one, which
Okay.
is nice. I did read one bad one because I just needed to know what they were saying, I guess. But it was stuff like, this book isn't realistic, and like, why is it funny? And I was like, okay, well,
Yeah,
that's
God,
that's
the
okay.
reviews. I get it, but it's sort of like I write like inspiring books for writers. And the thing is, if you want a book about the craft, you are not going to like my books. Like you're going to be so disappointed because I don't really address that. And
Mm.
it's like my wife said it great. She said a review is a description of an experience. And right, it's a description of experience somebody had. And
Yeah,
it maybe what their life and their expectations and their gripes and
yeah.
maybe whatever it is they bring to the and then they explain it. And I think it's so tricky to get into the headspace of what other people think about your stuff. You know,
Yeah. And I think there's this dumb story that I constantly tell, which is like during COVID, if you got a vaccine and you brought your vaccination card to Krispy Kreme, they give you a free donut.
they did. They
Yeah.
did.
And people went berserk. And I loved the story. I read every version of it. I read all the comments because people went berserk for different reasons. It's like, there isn't a Krispy Kreme by me. Why can't I use this at Winchell's? Like, there was, there was, we should not have to be rewarded. This is ridiculous.
Okay.
Sugar's bad for you. You should just be able to get an apple. Why can't I take this to the supermarket and get an apple? There were people, I mean, like, they only give you a glazed, and I don't like glazed. Why can't I get
Oh,
chocolate donut? And I just was like, I am free. I am free from the illusion of being universally liked. Because if a free donut is not universally popular, like I
oh,
have no hope. And I was like, I am.
that's a great story. And so that is a fantastic story, people. Did you hear that story? In other words, it's a free donut, and people still had a rasher of complaints about it.
But it's also just like if you're trying to be liked by everyone, there's no such thing as a universally liked thing, and you will lose who you
Yeah,
are in the process because you're going to be like, I've got a hat, I've got a mustache, I've got an
I
umbrella,
know.
like trying to please everybody. And what really sold my book, if this is a podcast about writing, is like the voice, like my
That's right.
voice on the page,
Yes.
what people
Yeah.
respond to. I know it's not like an Agatha Christie level, like thriller mystery with 8,000 tiny clues. It's not John Le Carre. Like
Right.
what people responded to was the emotion and my voice. And I only got to that because I was like, I'm gonna write this for myself. And if no one wants to publish it, I'll put it out as a PDF on Reddit. I don't really
Right.
give it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's the best attitude, Elizabeth. It is the best attitude because it's what I preach, and I'll tell you. But a part of me has always thought I will be happy if everybody likes me. If I could just get, but it's never. Then I try to do it, and it's so frustrating. And but there's that the art. I think the artist has that because we live off approval. We think we live off. It seems like all our bread and butter is off approval, and people tell us, but it's absolutely true. You can't please everybody, and really the job of the writer is to satisfy their aesthetic. To say because you actually said it actually earlier. You mentioned something. You said you were talking about well I don't do that much. I do have a want to I want it to sound a certain way. Well, that's you recognizing the thing you like
yeah.
and seeing if you like what you have done. Yeah.
And being able to kind of like the message I wanted to get across, that honestly, like the axe to grind that were my own personal ones. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a character say this. Like all of that stuff is there, and that just felt great. And I sent it to people who didn't get it or didn't like it, and I just was like, okay, I hear. And a thing that you get really good at in screenwriting and TV writing and all that is when people give you a note, the feeling of the solution you're giving me is not right, but the problem is correct.
Yeah. 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 That's
And so
great.
being able to kind of the annoying Hollywood phrases, what's the note behind the note? How do
But
I
it's
address the problem in a way that feels in line with what I'm doing, as
right.
opposed to giving you the solution that you want that doesn't feel right to me and doesn't fit with everything else.
Yeah.
And that's holds true for writing a novel. It's like, what am I trying to achieve and how do I achieve it?
Yeah. Oh, you got a good attitude. Elizabeth, you got a good attitude. You came at this right. I'm so glad. I think the book's going to do very well. That's my prediction. And I look forward to seeing it on my Amazon Prime account, assuming it gets finished. I know that there's a long way from saying to, I mean, you're getting pretty close that it's the script's been written. I don't know. There's nobody attached. Is anybody attached?
I don't think there's anybody attached yet, just Adele and Naya, who again are amazing. So I'm very thrilled with them, and they've been wonderful collaborators.
And
And
I'll tell you what,
we've got a healthy list.
if this book sells like crazy, suddenly producers will be that much more interested. This is this we all know how this works.
Well, the idea of like this is mythical IP now. It's like I could have written this as a screenplay, but nobody would have bought it. So here we
No,
are.
this is great. This is great. And so, all right, but come on now, another book. Have we already started book number two?
Yeah, I'm turning it in. I
Yeah.
just went to my agent this week to be like, is this garbage? And if my lovely agent Liz Parker says no, it's not garbage, I'll be sending it to my publisher in the next couple weeks.
Oh, look at you. Look at you. How do you like it? Do you like the life of the writer, the author? Because you can live down. You got to be in LA to be a screen. Well, you don't have to be, but you kind of have to be. But you can be out in Arizona, where it is. Where are you now?
In New Mexico, so I'm in the Southwest.
Mexico, one of those dry places, right? New Mexico. So you're there. You're enjoying it. You're writing the books. Got your kids. They're youngish.
6 and 2, so
Oh,
I'm still.
Jesus God. You're in the, oh, I'm getting, reading this book, I was starting to get flashbacks to when my kids were young. And I still remember the day my youngest, who was 3.5 years younger than my oldest, went to preschool. And I looked up and I was like, the other one was in first grade or whatever. And I was like, there's nobody home. And I ran to my wife. I said, let's run an errand without them. Let's just, let's see what that's like.
We're drunk on power. What do
I
you do? Vacuum?
know. All right. Okay. So again, people, go get it. Follow me. Fun book, exciting book, well-written book. You're going to love it. Elizabeth, I'm not done with you yet. I got one more question. One more question for you. I want you to think about all the writing you've done, the screenwriting, the novel writing, maybe the poems that you've written that you've showed nobody. I don't know. Think about all the writing you've done. And if it's taught you anything about being human, about life, it's taught you what?
Sometimes taking a risk is the most pragmatic thing you can do.